And we are live. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is you are in the world, and welcome to another edition of the Living World of Darkness. This evening we find the Primogen of Clan Malkavian, Calypso Gainsborough, escorted by Rick Grayson, walking among the complex of Magadon Industry, walking near the large fountain that is filled with light as a timed and themed light show play as the various spouts of water dance around to various lights, making it all look very interesting. It's actually something of a tourist attraction, and there are a fair few people walking around. Calypso, dressed in some of her finer attire, walks side by side with Rick as they are flanked by the two large bodyguards that Rick met a few evenings ago. And we start our scene here. So tell me, Rick, what cities have you called home in the past?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
What cities have you called home in the past?
Oh, I used to live in a suburb outside of Boston, but it was small, there wasn't much to do, and there wasn't anywhere to go.
I see. I never got to know the life in the suburbs. I myself was born in a much more quaint time, if you will. A time when the line between many things was simply black and white. A time when, well, let's just say black and white didn't go very well together. You can't really tell by the way I speak, but there was a time that my father owned many individuals. It was truly a different time than it is now, and one I frankly do not miss.
Which side of the line were you on?
The losing side.
So while the two kindred talk, another is slowly following them. His name is Ebbe Sunesen, and he has been led to this small meeting by the voices in the Madness Network. He's in all ways pretty average, not very tall, muscular, not very attractive. Most people wouldn't give him a second glance. He has short blonde hair, nicely combed and parted to the side, and deep blue eyes, very Scandinavian looking. Dressed in a second-handed and slightly worn suit. And he carries with him a black umbrella, opened over his head, even though it's not really raining. He keeps his distance, though, for a while.
As Calypso and Rick walk, she turns to him and sort of smiles very kindly. Tell me, Rick, how skilled are you with our clan discipline?
With our what?
Our clan discipline.
I've been taught the basics.
I see. And what power do you hold?
How do you mean?
Well, how far down the rabbit hole can you, in a manner of speaking, go with the power to bring madness out in others?
Sorry, I couldn't make out that last part.
Oh, okay. How skilled are you? How deep down the rabbit hole can you go with the power of our clan? More or less, she's asking you, what level of demontation do you hold?
I can rile up or dull down what someone's feeling, but beyond that, I'm new to the discipline.
So, still somewhat young. I can understand this. It is truly a wonderful and terrible power to hold. And that's what I love about it, its duality. The power to both see things without having to actually see them, and of course the power to bring forth insanity in others, to bring forth what's already there, they just deny. My sire once said we have the power to make honest people out of all those we gaze upon.
Help people see more clearly.
Indeed. And with that, Calypso will look at the water and take a coin from her pocket and drop it in. And she begins to concentrate as she watches the ripples. In due time, Rick, I do hope that I can teach you the power to see beyond what this world has veiled over it. When you become skilled enough, you can have the power to almost be a soothsayer in a way. And she's going to roll her perception and occult for Eyes of Madness. It's going to be a difficulty of 8. We'll spend a willpower and hope for the best. 1, 2, 3 successes. Alright. Ah, thank God. Alright. As Calypso looks down into the water, she sees a vision and her eyes begin to kind of dilate as she sort of very suddenly drops to her knees in front of Rick, placing her hands upon the edge of the fountain, looking into the water with kind of almost a slight hiss as she watches and digs deeply into the threads of fate that surround them both. And she sees within the water, she almost sees something can only be described as a figure made of glass, broken shards of glass at that, very reflective in a way. And when she finally comes out of it, a bit of blood drips out from her left eye, which she quickly wipes away, and she turns to look directly at Ebe with kind of a sly eye. I do believe we have a guest, Rick, she says, sort of with a slight labored voice.
Ebbe bows very politely and just says, "Oh, excuse me. I was told I could find you here."
Calypso will stand up, grabbing hold of Rick's arm for support as she gets back up a bit wobbly on her feet. And she looks at Ebe. Strange, I didn't recall telling anybody my route or any of my appointments.
Well, you told me.
Does that mean I have a rat in my midst, or is this person just gifted with a great deal of fortuity?
I would guess that he's one of us.
One of us?
One of us. Speak your name.
Oh, pardon me. My name is Ebbe Sunesen.
Ebbe Sunesen. And I am assuming that you are like us. I can find out if I have to, but it would be in very poor taste if you are one of us to simply force me to do so.
I think so. But I'm not entirely certain, actually.
Are we playing coy, or are we just being cryptic?
Ebbe laughs a little to himself. He's pretty sure the others are Malkavians, but, well, the voices have led him astray before, so.
If I were to ask you what the stories of the Bible meant to you, especially about the introduction of murder into this world, what would you say?
Oh, I've never really put much stock in religion, sorry.
So the tales of Cain and Abel mean nothing to you?
I've heard them, but, well, they're just stories, really.
Well then, I suppose it will have to be the way. And she invokes the power of Auspex. You don't have Deceptive Aura, do you?
No.
Okay, good. She activates the second level of Auspex to perceive the aura of Ebe, and when she does, she can clearly see that he is hindered, and she just kind of takes a unneeded sigh. You know, there are many families in this city. One might even say clannish families. Do you hail from one of these families, Ebe?
Oh, I believe so, yes.
Oh. And what is the name of your family?
Well, my sire called him Malkath, our progenitor.
And with that, she just kind of shoots a sidelong glance at Rick with a smirk.
Rick nods to Calypso, a little wary after the display of Eyes of Chaos.
So then, we are related then.
Oh, well, that's pleasant news. At least the
And
voices weren't wrong this time.
as I said, a certain amount of fortuity seems to be flowing around this city. And here we are, the three of us, all shards of the same broken mirror.
Well, the word where I come from is that New York is New York has many opportunities for young kindred, so, well, here I am.
Well, this is true. It is one of the few bastions out there that doesn't have elders already picking away at every bit of influence and every bit of resource, leaving very little for the younger generations, let's say. There's a great deal of opportunity here, Ebe.
I'm pleased to hear it.
But there is one thing I must know. Do you follow the
Yes.
Ivory Tower?
Oh, certainly.
I see. So you're not a member of the Sword of Cain, are you?
No. He's not really sure what she means by the Sword of Cain, but it's not a word he's familiar with, so it's safe to assume he isn't.
You're not a Sabbat infiltrator?
No.
I assume at this point, if you were lying, it might show up in the aura with a certain amount of rolls. But I guess we're just going to storytell it at this point. Calypso just turns to Rick. Well, it seems that you've been joined by another. Now I don't have to quite keep as close an eye on you as I was before.
You are a Primogen, yes?
Whatever gave you that idea?
Well, I was directed to you, so wild guess.
Perhaps I'm just an elder of the city. Someone who's been here for a very long time. Perhaps I'm a Methuselah, or even yet a childer of Malcab himself.
No, you don't appear that old.
Well, at least you're not a complete and total fool. You'd be surprised how many of the new fledglings and neonates sometime actually take that with a bit of stock. It entertains me when their eyes go rather large and they begin to, well, squirm in their own skin. Is a term I like to use.
Well, I have been used to my sire, and he seems a lot more intimidating than you, no offense, but maybe that's just because I don't know you yet.
I found that having to be intimidating all the time is exhausting. If I need to be intimidating, I can be.
Of course you can.
I don't necessarily like to flex that certain muscle unless it's absolutely needed.
It's more effective to be personable anyway.
Well, it lets you get that much closer to your prey, I like to think. Anybody can chase their prey down. It is much more satisfying when you get right up to them, and she sort of turns to Rick and just places a hand, her fingers kind of just poking into his sternum. We're very close. It's much easier to get, and much more enjoyable to get right up close, let them look you in the eye, and then decide their fate.
Rick is visibly nervous.
And
Ebby
then
just
at that point,
looks curiously at
Calypso will smile very blatantly and just kind of speak softly. Yes, not intimidating at all. Tell me, Ebe, what are your plans for the city? What do you hope to accomplish here?
Well, I was hoping to get out from under my sire's shadow, learn to stand on my own feet, so to say.
Well, you can do this in this city, but there are some perils that await you in the city that are somewhat unique to New York. Or at least, rather, the frequency at which they seem to run into all of us. I mean, how much do you know about lupines?
What, you mean werewolves?
Yes.
Uh, Not much, just enough to know that I don't want to meet one.
Well, we have quite a few in this city. Their domain, their territory, their range, whatever the hell they call it, is in Central Park. They seem to stay there, and they are happy to be left there alone. We've had very few run-ins with them as long as we remain outside their territory.
They live in the park.
And they guard it fiercely. The standing decree is that if a kindred is to enter the park, it is the same as committing suicide. Suicide by lupine, as we like to refer to it here in New York.
Very catchy phrase.
Indeed. Beyond that, there is New York University. It is currently held by what has been referred to as mages, sorcerers, magicians. Rumor has it that they're powerful. How powerful? I'm not exactly sure. They could be just as strong as our Tremere, or even stronger. But they have requested politely that we not enter their domain without prior approval. How one obtains that approval is beyond me.
You have spoken with them, you mean?
Me, personally, no, but I believe our former prince, Jan Petersen, did, and worked out an agreement with them.
Ebbet just sort of raises an eyebrow at the mention of Jan, a name even he is familiar with. So there's no risk of just bumping into one.
I suppose if you did, as long as you didn't grab a hold of them and bite their neck, I'm fairly certain that they would pay you no mind as you would pay them none.
Okay. Sounds fair enough.
And then, of course, there is the Bronx. Now, this one is the big stretch. This one is the $1,000,000 answer to the $100,000,000 question. You said you don't believe in ancient folklore about Christianity, correct?
Correct.
We have creatures of an infernal nature living in the Bronx. They refer to themselves as fallen. We have referred to them as demons.
Really?
I don't know exactly what they are. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I don't know the range of their power.
Well, do they threaten the masquerade?
Well, if you mean, do they show up on the 10 o'clock news? No. Do they seek us out in active conflict? Not that I'm aware of. As far as I know, they have been somewhat respectful of our traditions. All they ask in return is that we do not hunt in the Bronx.
Well, then I don't see any reason to interfere with them.
Yes. Other than that, Manhattan generally remains a kindred zone. The various clans have divvied up territory as domain. When you establish yourselves in the city and present yourself to the prince, you of course will be allowed all the amenities that come with domain, should you prove yourself useful, of course.
Of course. So we have a a part of Manhattan for Clan Malkavian?
We do. As long along the East River, pretty much everything from the center of the island all the way down to lower Manhattan, Soho area, if you will. I don't
I'm
have
not,
the map drawn up at the moment, but I'll see that it gets to you.
okay, I'm not particularly familiar with the city yet, so a map might help.
Yes, I'll have one sent to you. For the time being, you can join your fellow clanmate Rick here in the apartment next to mine.
Ebbe sort of glances at Rick, looks him over, and just nods a hello to him.
So I'll have a roommate.
For the time being, yes.
You only have one room?
No, it's an entire brownstone. There are about 6 bedrooms.
Ah,
I mean, if you'd really prefer it, you can share the same bed.
not particularly, no.
No, not 2 torpid vampires spooning each other in the dead heat of the day. No,
No, thanks.
not appealing. Oh, very well.
I have so far been sleeping in a bathtub with a blanket over me, so a bed would be nice.
Yes, our rooms are nice and light tight. When I had the brownstones that I currently call home converted, one of the things we made sure of was to make certain that no light was able to make its way in. It's fairly problematic to wake up from your torpid state to find yourself on fire. Especially without the gift of fortitude.
Yeah, I don't possess that yet. Yet, mind you.
Perhaps in time, there are many teachers in this city and even more students. I do have one decree, though, now that I mention that. We will not pass on our blood in any way, shape, or form to those outside the clan. The power that we possess sometimes randomly appears in those that partake in our blood.
Ah, I see.
And I do not wish to see the talents that our clan is known for spread out amongst the masses.
Well, fair enough.
Now, do either of you have questions for me?
Are there any other rules in New York?
Respect the laws that govern us, respect the masquerade, respect the traditions, respect the boundaries of the others, and don't fraternize with the anarchs. There are anarchs in the city, and unfortunately this city has a sordid history with the anarchs. We've had one that somehow was able to lure Tremere away from their pyramid, as I've heard, which was met with a swift and calculated blow. And then, of course, there was the gunpowder rebellion that we had, where
Rebellion?
several of our disenfranchised neonates, led by a Toreador upstart, decided to declare himself Baron and then blood bond many of our ranks. They even staked and bloodbound one of our Primogen at the time.
I had not heard of this.
It's something we don't normally discuss outside the city, but suffice it to say, the term anarch raises a few brows, and if you're known to have an anarch friend, it's certainly not against the traditions. But you said you wish to move up in this city, you wish for opportunity. Let's just say if you were to find yourself having one of your little anarch friends and were fairly blatant about it, I could see some of those opportunities being afforded to someone who doesn't fraternize with those sorts.
I could see it have merit, but of course I won't.
If we do ever encounter anarchs that are respectful of our territory and respectful of our traditions and simply wish to exist, live, and let live, I'm sure that fences can be mended and we can all be one big neighborhood once again. And with that, she looks to Rick. Any more questions from you, my friend?
Rick has been following the conversation closely. Some terms he was unfamiliar with having been mentioned. He looks to Calypso and asks again, "What did you mean, fortitude?"
Sometimes I forget how young some of you newcomers can be. Fortitude is a gift of the blood that is afforded to some, such as our friends in the Venture. You know how the claws of a lupine or the fangs of another kindred cause damage that hurts a great deal. And takes a great bit of blood and it seems ages of concentration to repair.
Not firsthand, no.
Ah, well, you're lucky in that respect. What about fire? Do you know anything about fire?
I know well enough to stay away from it,
Yes, yes. And sunlight. I'm sure you know about sunlight.
of course.
It is said that those gifted with the power of the blood known as fortitude are able to withstand such things. They're able to absorb them the same way that we are able to absorb massive blows from baseball bats and gunshots, and to a point, even knives and things of that nature.
Rick is visibly intrigued by this.
I'm surprised that you weren't familiar with it. It's a fairly common discipline.
My sire wasn't very forthcoming.
Ah, well, that's fair enough. Yes, it's a handy little gift of the blood to have. I myself do not possess it, but I also take steps to make sure that I don't ever have to face down the claws of a lupine, the fangs of another kindred, fire or sunlight. The day that happens is the day that I likely will no longer be on this planet.
At the mention of sunlight, Ebbe just sort of spins his umbrella around in his hand, just glancing up at the streetlights.
Calypso will look at this.
Quickly to cover him again.
Will just kind of look at this and then raise a brow, but really pay it no more mind than really is warranted. Well, gentlemen, I was planning on catching a show over on Broadway this evening. Would you like to join me?
Sounds fun.
I do hear that the stage show Wicked is playing.
I think I would have to decline, thank you.
Hmm. Well then,
I would rather get to know the city a little bit more.
she'll wave one of the gentlemen over, one of the guards that they've been flanked by, and he'll simply pull out a card and hand it to Calypso, and Calypso will then hand it off to Ebe. This is the address that you'll need. There will be someone there to receive you.
Okay. He takes it, bows slightly, and puts it into his inner jacket pocket.
Well, Rick, shall we?
Rick nods to Calypso, then looks back to Ebe and says, "See you around, neighbor."
Yeah, I guess.
And with that, Calypso and the two bodyguards and the other kindred make their way off away from the area. And I believe there we can end our scene.